Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and my wonderful guest for Hour 2 is John Savage. He was my guest last week, and he was gracious enough to join me on Hour 2 because Betsy couldn't stay an hour extra. And let me read you his bio again. And if you missed him last week, make sure you check out the archives. They're fantastic. But John Savage is the founder of the Minnesota Paranormal Investigators, formed in 1991, which is the longest-running paranormal group in the state of Minnesota. He is also the founder of his new group, Virginia Minnesota Paranormal Investigators, which is located in Virginia Beach, Virginia. He has over 27 years of experience as a paranormal investigator and has helped train members of several paranormal groups in Minnesota and the upper Midwest. He has been featured in several books and was a consultant for the movie Ghost from the Machine of 2010. He has investigated many locations across the United States, including the sunken mile battlefield, Fredericksburg, Virginia, the historic Mounds Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota, and many other locations in the upper Midwest. He has also investigated several locations in England and also in Cyprus. And John uses a very logical and detailed approach when it comes to investigating a location that is presumed haunted. He looks for a normal explanation and examined evidence with a critical eye before jumping to the paranormal realm. John also became an ordained minister in 2012. And you can check out, you can go to the website at paranormalsocietiesibelieve.com. We'll get a website for you guys to access. And it is with great pleasure we welcome John to the show this evening. Good evening, John.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Is it morning where you are, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little after 1.
Oh, that's not too bad. Well, it's still not quite midnight here, but that's okay. We're expecting a winter storm.
Hey, better you than me.
Oh, yeah, I know. I knew you were going to say that. But it's wonderful to have you on. I'm so glad to have you for an extra. This is great. I had you last week, and I've got you an extra hour now. So this is fantastic.
Yeah, you're getting spoiled.
I am getting spoiled. What am I going to do? Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good to have you on board, and it's also good to have you here because you have so much expertise when it comes to the supernatural realms. And I know we were kind of deciding on what we wanted to chat about tonight. Now, I was interested in kind of doing a little bit of a recap on some of your previous investigations, especially some of the investigations you did in England. But where would you like to start tonight?
Oh, we can start with England. That's always the best one.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. One of my favorite investigations was a place called Bulbrook Castle. Now, Bulbrook Castle, which is located in a small village called Hartfield in East Sussex. And just a side note, Winnie the Pooh is based out of Hartfield in East Sussex. So it's like, this is where Winnie the Pooh was written.
Very cute.
I thought that was kind of cool. My wife had to explain that one to me.
Nice.
Well, anyways, Bulbrook Castle was a 15th century hunting lodge. And this is where Henry VIII is said to have stayed while he was courting Anne Boleyn, who was only 5 miles away over in Hever Castle. Nice little small hunting lodge. I mean, we spent the night there, the wife and I. We had the whole castle to ourselves.
Cool.
Oh,
that's nice. How big is it?
It's actually not that big. It's really small if you compare it to his other palaces that he has. We stayed in his room inside and also slept in his bed, obviously with a new mattress. My first event that I've had happen to me in that castle was we just got back from Stonehenge. We were very tired, just worn out. I'm laying in bed, and I've got my EVP recorder with me. And I'm laying there thinking, God, what do I say? What questions do I ask? If the spirit of Henry VIII is here, what kind of conversation am I going to have with him? Well, I'm laying there trying to think of something to say, and the only thing that I could think of saying was the song Henry VIII. So I turn on my recorder and I start singing, I'm Henry VIII, I am. Well, after singing that horrible song, I played it back and you can hear a voice saying, be quiet.
Wow.
Well, I took that as a hint of, knock it off, go to bed, which I did. Next morning, we got the full tour of the whole castle. There's like hidden rooms where they used to hide people from the clergy, because after Henry VIII dissolved the church from Rome and it became the Church of England, a lot of the monasteries, a lot of the other churches, which were still Catholic, they all went into hiding, and they would hide them in what's called a priest hole. Well, the story goes that in this castle, there's a spirit of a nun that was found, and she was beaten and killed at the castle in one of these rooms. So her spirit haunts this place. We were, I'm trying to remember this was many years ago. We were walking around up on the second floor, and on the second floor would have been the rooms for, people of the court, people who were visiting the king and what have you. Walked into this big room, and I asked the question, can you tell me who used to stay in this room? On playback, you hear a female's voice saying Anne Boleyn.
Wow.
Now, was that the spirit of Anne Boleyn? According to the lord of the castle, her spirit is supposed to be haunting the castle. It's called the Lady in Grey, which I find it kind of interesting because almost every castle in England has the spirit of the Lady in Grey.
Uh-huh.
People have seen her without a head, so they just assume it's Anne Boleyn. But if you go over to her castle where she grew up, over in Havey Castle, they see a lady in white with no head.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, how can a spirit be, two different castles, but she's also been seen at the Tower of London, and many other places. So
that's interesting.
I think a lot of it's just more folklore. I think it's really, they think it's really cool.
Right.
But we've had other things in that castle that happened to us, like the door slamming, doorknob shaking. We had, on the second night we were there, we had someone tugging on our bed sheets.
Wow.
Never really got any good evidence that it was an actual spirit. But based on my experience as an investigator, I'm pretty sure that may have been someone from the court, from the Henry VIII's court, or maybe the spirit of Henry VIII himself. Maybe he didn't like me singing that song, and he's like, quiet, or I'm going to cut off your head,
And when you had all this type of, these signatures that are happening, was it during the day or during the night only?
The one that said be quiet was at night.
Okay.
All the other events were during the day.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, mind you, we were the only people in the castle besides the owner who lived in a different part of the castle.
Wow.
We did check weather conditions. We had one door that kept rattling, but it also rattled on command. If you're here, rattle, push the door twice, you can hear the door move. But at the same time, it was windy outside. And this is a very old building, so there could have been a natural occurrence going on.
Right. Well, you always have to, you're very analytical. I like that about you. But also, the spirits move through the elements too. So that's not necessarily unheard of, as you well know. Yeah.
Yep.
I've done that. Go ahead.
That was that was Bowbrook. Another investigation was a place called the Ram's Inn. The Ram's Inn is a 13th century building that's built on 4 ley lines and also on top of a pagan burial ground. This place has been featured in shows like not American Most Haunted, Britain's Most Haunted, Ghost Adventures been there, Ghost Hunters has been there a couple times. There are a couple of rooms that are quite haunted. You had the Red Room, or known as the Bishop's Room, where a cavalier has been seen in the corner. You had a guest room, which is called the Witch's Room.
Ooh.
Now, in this room, people have supposedly seen a female, and also a cat has been heard in this one room. Well, the history of this one room, it goes like this. Back in the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries, when a couple got married, they really didn't have a lot of money to go on a honeymoon, if you will. So they would pay X amount of pounds or shillings to the church, which owned this house. and they will consummate the marriage in this room. This was the honeymoon suite.
Mm.
And it seems like whenever there was a new couple that would stay the night in this room, and this is also in modern day, things will happen. The bed will move by mysterious hands, of course. They'll hear weird noises. People would claim to feel a cat jumping on the bed.
Mm.
Now, when we stayed there, I experienced nothing in this room. The room that had the Cavalier in it, we experienced some really unusual events. And this is the only time as a paranormal investigator I left the lights on, my shoes on, my jacket on, some of my gear still packed.
Wow.
And my wife and I were laying in bed, and they're two separate beds.
Uh-huh.
And I swear to God, the beds were kind of like vibrating.
Mm.
And just then, John Humphrey, who I've just now learned has passed, comes into the room and asks the wonderful question, would you like Ink to come in and visit you? Well, Ink is what he calls the incubus that's in the place.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, no, we're pretty good right now, as is. We don't need his assistance at all. Thank you.
Wow.
But we had some really unusual sounds, really creepy at night. You know, like I said, this building's a 13th century building, and there's tunnels underneath that leads from the house to the church.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
And there's still bodies underneath there from the pagan cemetery.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
So that place is wow. For an investigator, I would live in that place in a heartbeat. If I could buy it, I would.
Wow.
But I wouldn't want to stay in there all the time.
No. So what kind of equipment did you use with that one room? Did you use anything in particular, or just bring in your own personal radar energetically?
Oh no, I use my ever-trusting dowsing rods, of course.
Okay.
I use my EVP recorders, my digital recorders, EMF meters, which in a building that old really didn't work that well.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can imagine. But I would say that the dowsing rods, if you were able to, did you ever get to go underground at all and wander?
No, the tunnel that goes underneath the building and up to the church was flooded out.
Okay.
And just talking to a couple of other investigators who are still investigating the place, they were able to pump the water out, and they found some hidden rooms.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, oh, I need to get back to the UK for that one.
Yeah, you should. That's very, very interesting.
So, yeah, those are my two favorite haunting investigations that I experienced in England.
That's very cool. Go ahead.
Then, of course, you know, we've got the Stonehenge, which we kind of spent the whole day walking around. And from a energy point of view, that place is phenomenal.
Is it? Very nice.
It is. I mean, I took off my shoes and socks, and I just walked around barefoot just to absorb the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's on my bucket list. How long were you there, you say?
Well, my wife is from England,
Uh-huh.
but I would make trips there to the UK for months at a time.
That's nice. That's wonderful.
Oh, God, yes.
You should still go back. I mean, you should go. Well, I don't know. I don't know how it is over there now. How long has it been since y'all been over there?
9 years, I believe.
Really? Wow. Yeah. I wonder if it's changed a lot since then.
Well, from the social point of view, yes, it's changed. From the paranormal point of view, I think it's kind of died down, just like it has here in the States.
Uh-huh.
But there are a couple other places I really want to check out when I get back to the UK.
Which ones?
There's a prison called the Hall of Justice, and I think I talked about this briefly last week, where it was a prison from the 14th, 15th century, and they would have people thrown into pits and holes into the ground. I mean, horrible conditions.
Right.
And you know, people would they would kill people in there. They would hang them in the courtyard. Um, you know, that's one place I would love to investigate.
Not
And
much justice there, John. Kind of the opposite, isn't it? So like,
well, I think that'd be one place as a medium I would be really interested in opening up fully, and to communicate with the spirits that are there,
right.
just to experience what they went through. You know, it's a part of history. We read about it, but we don't really experience it.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure it has some really bad vibes there. That would be my impression.
Well, when we took a tour through that place, you could feel the ickiness. I mean, it was very thick, very heavy.
I bet.
It was almost like you're walking through sludge.
You'd probably need a bath and sea salt afterwards, right?
No, I went to the pub and had a pint.
Oh, that might help. Well, it's alcohol purification. Vodka. No, I'm just kidding. The next best thing, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Wow. So what else? Any other location over there that draws you?
I mean, there was just a couple of small places, a pub that we investigated with another group from England. And this was the first time I actually used my abilities outside of my group. Mm-hmm. And not knowing the history of the place that we were going, which was really great, I was able to identify, the upper levels of this place. It was a pub, a restaurant on the bottom, and then on the top was the living quarters for the chef and what have you. And he was able to validate the little rooms that were upstairs. I could tell him what color the rooms were.
Oh, nice.
Which just blew him away because I've never been there before.
You're really good. I know you have that ability.
And halfway through the night, I kept explaining. I said, I'm seeing people running out, and I'm hearing explosions. Now this is London, so we had the bombing during World War II, and I'm saying, well, I see them, and they're telling me I need to run with them down the street, like 3 houses down, and they're telling me go to the right. Now this is again an area I've never been. When we got there, it was dark. It was about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So I had no knowledge of what this area is. Well, the investigators there were shocked because I was describing an air raid shelter that was 3 houses down and into a hill.
Oh, wow. That's excellent.
And oh boy, did I was just jazzed up after that because it was really cool. It's like, oh wow, I had these spirits telling me, one person did die because I was telling them about a bomb that went off, and they were able to validate, yes, there was some of the homes nearby did get hit. There were some people that died in the streets from collapsed buildings, and I'm like, wow, that was just great validation.
Yeah, you really do have an incredible ability. You need to. That's why I like having you on the show. People need to know about you. I told you that before. I have to ask you. With that kind of a radar, did you ever get interested in maybe doing some investigation in the Jack the Ripper and the locations over there?
We were going to take a tour, the Jack the Ripper tour in London. But I really didn't feel comfortable. Now, some of the locations where they found some of the bodies are no longer there. There's different buildings on top of where the murders took place. But I don't know how I would feel with all that energy. And I'm thinking with the energy of London itself, a lot of that's just been overwritten.
Yeah, that's true. Very much so. I always thought it was interesting. That was always an interesting case to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because of watching the old documentaries on it or something. But it's very, very interesting. It is gross, but at the same time, the fact that they never really nailed that whoever it was, got away with it.
I mean, I was watching a show on, I think it was Discovery Channel, and they were talking about, what is this guy's name? The name's I'm drawing a blank of the name, but they think that he was the actual Jack the Ripper. And he had like the murder house in Chicago.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. It's Mudge, not Mudgett. Well, because I interviewed Jeff. Is it Jeff Mudgett you're talking about? His relative.
Yeah, his great granddad or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
Jeff Budget. Yeah. Bloodstains. I think he wrote a book called, yeah, he did
Yep.
because I interviewed him. Yeah, H. Holmes. Right.
Holmes. That's who it
Yep.
is.
Hmm.
And watching that program, there was a lot of interesting things that came up, and I don't think they were coincidence.
Hmm.
But we'll never know until we die, until we cross over.
Even then, I'm not even sure you'd really know, depending on what sector you wind up in. It might be in a very different location. You may not want to know. You may not want to go mingle with whatever's out there on that level. I don't know.
Maybe Manson was a reincarnation of him. Who knows?
Oh gosh. What about Lizzie Borden? Have you ever been to that house?
No, but I would love to go.
You would. Okay, so that doesn't spook you. That doesn't bother you.
A lot of places where there's been a murder doesn't bother me. I mean, I've done cases where it's been a murder-suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And as creepy as it sounds, death by suicide doesn't bother me at all, or death by murder doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at the murder photos and, look at it not as a, saying, oh, this is gross, but I look at them as, okay, where's a picture of the soul leaving the body? That's how I look at it.
Right.
But most of the time, it's very rare that I'll get really upset over a murder-suicide type situation. Now, one place that I would love to investigate, but the ethics that we have comes into play is either Dachau or Auschwitz.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, that would be some heavy energy. There's no doubt about that.
That would be, but at the same time, if an opportunity came up and said, "Hey, would you like to investigate these two places?" I'll be all over it.
Right.
But at the same time, I would be kind of cautious how I would react. We're dealing with a tragedy in the human timeline.
Right.
Millions of people got killed, were murdered. What kind of energy is that going to, what kind of energy is it being put out there? Their turmoil, how would I handle that type of energy, or how would anyone handle that type of energy?
Right.
So I think in a situation like that, I look at it as like sacred ground. And the moral, and then the good moral side of me would say, no, don't do it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Even then, it's such a heavy, sad energy, I would imagine. But who knows? People have, sent a lot of healing to that whole timeline, so it could be very different. The energetic signature might be completely different now than it used to be. Things could have changed in vibration, right?
Something that traumatic an event, I don't think anything can ever be healed in that area.
Right.
I don't think so. It just. Yeah. I mean, maybe if you're talking about where the Twin Towers were, sending healing energy in that area, that could kind of close it up. But with Dachau and Auschwitz, I can't see that happening.
Right. I don't think the Twin Towers. Actually, I think there's a big vortex there. I don't think it's healed at all. Quite honestly, I think there's still some major stuff there. I haven't been there, but what is your impression? Have you been over there or no?
No. I've always wondered if you got there, if you were able to go that high up, would you be able to capture anything on EVP?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because especially if you go with the theory that the building, even though it's not there on our physical plane, the energy is still there on the other side. The building still exists. So if you go to each level on wherever that new building's built and one of the footsteps, would you pick up the pain, the fear, the sorrow from those who perish?
Right. Well, you think that even the ones that transferred out would want to communicate what happened to you. They would want to. To me, it seems like they wouldn't rest until they did. That's just my impression.
Yeah.
So, that's very interesting.
Things like that, I always wondered about like airplane crash sites. What would happen?
Even like the Titanic. I mean, there's a signature like you were talking about.
Exactly. Would you do the investigation at sea level, or would you send a recorder down, one of those little ROVs down to the wreck itself.
Right. Well, there's something about touching the, if you can touch the object itself or the vibration, I think that really, really, there's a transfer of energy that's phenomenal, in my opinion, if you can touch any of those things.
As a full medium, doing psychometry, I have a hard time dealing with because it's it's the energy that's coming off the object.
Right.
Especially if it's something that's been used for like a murder or something. I'll give you an example. When I was in London, we went to the Tower of London, and inside the White Castle, that's the main castle itself. They have this beautiful room. The whole thing is beautiful. They have all the old armor, the muskets, the coat of arms, the suit of arms for the knights. And they actually have 2 original chopping blocks that they use when they beheaded people. One you can't touch. One was the one that they used for Anne Boleyn. Another one was just for the common criminal. And I decided, I wonder what energy it would hold.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I touched it, it was almost like being shot. There was a lot of pain, a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I touched it for a couple of seconds, it felt like eternity. And it was something that, and I can't really explain it, but it was like a very sick feeling in my gut.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. This is what death is.
Yeah,
and if that's what
evil.
Yeah, it was the weirdest, uneasy feeling to deal with, which I never want to feel again.
That's what I mean. It's an unnatural death, and that's the whole problem behind it. Is when things like that are tragic or just violent. No, there's no peace. How can there be peace with that kind of a violent transfer?
Exactly, and the way I was looking at it is the energy that was inside this piece of wood. This piece of wood absorbed these people's blood, their life essence. And that essence is intertangled with everyone else's essence. It was the weirdest thing. And a feeling that I never, ever want to feel again.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, stuff like that I'm not real interested in interacting with. I think it's more about the ancient artifact stuff I really like, though. I don't have a problem touching anything like that. Something that's...
Well, after we talked last week, I was kind of thinking about ancient artifacts and, why haven't we had a lot of EVPs or any paranormal photographs from places like the pyramids or from Stonehenge? Or why haven't we heard anything about, the earliest man, the spirit of a caveman?
Right.
And that's going to bug me now. I'm going to have to figure out why. It seems like there's a certain point in human history we can start with, okay, this is the first ghost story. But there's nothing before that.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything of, we saw the spirit of a caveman running around, wearing a lion cloth, or, well, you know what I mean.
Right.
You don't hear that. Why is that?
Only if you go to the Hawaiian Islands and if you see the night marchers or something like that, you'll see one of the ancient ones, the old Hawaiians. But it's interesting. Maybe the energy is more pure or something. It seems like there's a lot of contamination. We were kind of talking about that when I caught the show with Betsy, but it's that whole thing about there's too much interference. There's a lot of things that are just distorted right now. And I'm really wondering if it's not encapsulating and entrapping a great deal of spirits that are trying to get out. I think there's some major fraction, what do I call fraction? Not necessarily fracturing going on is really what I guess I want to say. But yeah, you're right though. But back then, everything seemed like we didn't have a bunch of satellites floating around and cell phone towers and all sorts of interference and weirdness going on. It was a lot different.
Mm-hmm. Oh, exactly.
So when you left, you left. And when you transferred out, you had a clean shot out of here. You weren't getting interfered with, in my opinion, anyway. That's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Nowadays, look at the mess we have. Can you imagine? We touched on this last week, but when people transfer out, there's such violence. There's so many levels to violence right now. these guys can't really navigate to a very heavenly place when they go. And I don't even think they can make it to a hell. I mean, literally, I think that they're like hovering in the astral, a lot of disembodied spirits. And you have to ask yourself, I mean, is it really just like pushing through all those things when you're transferring out? You have to like push your way through and get out and away from all of them? Because to me, it seems like a horde of entities right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there's been a change on the other side, at least from a soul level, that a lot of the souls that we have now are kind of lost. They don't really know what their purpose is. You know, maybe because they're, like I said before, they're brand new souls and they're just learning their way. But it also seems like there's a lot more negative souls.
Right.
And I don't mean like violent, you know, they're not going out killing people, but just attitude. Because remember, our attitudes that we have here, you know, goes with us. And it just seems like they're stuck in almost like a limbo, but not really a limbo that, you know, we're used to, like purgatory or judgment limbo. They're just there wandering around.
Yeah, that's even worse. To some degree, they don't have it. They're like no destination. Yeah, it's very sad. I actually see that a lot. It's almost like an after image of what they're really doing here. They don't really have any purpose here. I mean, and they could have a purpose if they choose to, but it's that concept of, while you're here, make the best of each moment. You know, do the best you can, be as good as you can be, and be kind if you can. But these people don't seem to do any of those things. They just, you know, it's just an observation. But I'm saying how they act here is what's going to happen to them when they leave, in my opinion, unless they do some miraculous work where they, I'm not saying they have to redeem themselves, but they have to transcend their energy.
I think there's going to be a good mass of energy that's just not going to transfer over.
Yeah, and then you have to ask what happens to it.
They just get stuck. They're just there.
Or do you think they get like incinerated? They just kind of disintegrate?
No, I think either they're going to get a chance to return. They're not going to advance on the evolutionary scale, and they're not going to continue their soul advancement. They're going to get kicked back down to relearn what they're supposed to learn. In other words, they failed at the school of life. They're going to repeat a grade.
Right. Well, then I wonder, is there a world for them to come back to? And that's the thing that, you know, Betsy and I were talking about, how this world is just completely getting, you know, contaminated and disrespected and trashed without, I mean, just unbelievable.
I think within the past, I want to say 10 years, maybe even more than that, the energy in this world has just gone titsy-turvy.
Yep.
It makes
Pandora's
no
box.
sense.
I totally agree.
I mean, the hatred that people have towards each other, the I don't care attitude. There was I'll give you a prime example. There was a news article. No, it was a news video about a lady in Baltimore. She had a mental illness problem. The hospital discharged her in the middle of winter. This was back, I want to say it was either this month or last month. It was like 32 degrees or something like that. Took her out of the hospital, wheeled her to the bus stop wearing nothing but a hospital gown.
Right, I saw that video. Very sad. Yep.
And I'm sitting there going, from a soul level, how can you not know what you're doing is wrong? It makes no sense unless you just don't understand or just don't care.
Yeah, I don't think they care. I really don't. I think there's no compassion. It seems like there's no heart center.
And I just saw that and I went, you know, if I was working that night and that happened to me, I would keep the lady in. I don't care if she's being discharged or not. You know, do the right thing. But looking at the video, the security people just like, okay, just dump her out like a piece of trash.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, how can you survive? What happened to your soul? What happened to the humanity's soul and being compassionate? It's gone.
Yeah, they lost their way. Somehow mankind lost their way. I'm not saying everybody did, but it's the people like that. It becomes an epidemic where this behavior becomes the norm. And that's the scary thing. And think about it, John. This isn't even during a turmoil where we have like a serious crisis in the U.S. This is just a regular thing in a hospital where somebody's getting discharged, and that's how they're acting, and that's not even at a critical mass. Can you imagine if people are like, and there's an epidemic and there's hospitals? I can only see that there's going to be so much entity controls. Just people don't care. They'll just stomp on each other, or even it's like robbing the dead. You go over there and you, instead of seeing if there's a pulse, you want to take their jewelry. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at a lot of the videos out there, I mean, there was one, and everyone's going to laugh because I'm going to mention Dr. Phil. He showed a video, and I think this was in New York or in Philly, where a young teenager was being beat up and kicked at a bus terminal, and there are 3 security personnel standing inches from her, looking at her as she's getting kicked. One of them just turns around and walks away. The other 2 just stood there and did nothing.
See, I would have had those people fired on the spot. Sorry, that's their job for security, is to protect people, not to sit there and be voyeurs.
And I'm just sitting there going, how can you not step in and defend a person? I don't care if you're black, white, green, purple, Buddha, Muslim. A person is a person, regardless. Stepping in and saying, knock it off, defend this person who's helpless. But these adults just stood there like, it's like another day. It becomes like normal. It's someone else getting beat up, not my problem.
Right. They're desensitized. And I think that a lot of that has to do with television. The entertainment programming, they're lost. But it is scary because the good people with the good moral compasses I can't find very many of them. I know they're out there, but we all live different states, I wish I had a bunch of property. I get all my friends to live close by. Seriously.
It's, and I'm also to the point where I'm wondering if we're being influenced subconsciously through the media.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Being brainwashed.
Yep.
I mean, you just turn on CNN and you can see it right then and there.
Right. That's propaganda central, although they want to pass themselves off as real media. They're not real media. They've been lying since day one, and aren't they just overrun by CIA anyway?
Yeah.
Just like the entertainment industry, the music industry, and everything else. That's what I mean. It's been an orchestration. It's a movie that we didn't ask to participate in, that we've been kind of pulled into and basically lied to. And I think that it's the afterbirth is literally what you're seeing right now. It's cause and effect. But they've created the cause, and they need to be responsible. There's accountability. Yep. There's negligence here with mainstream media. There's negligence with the covert intel. I don't care if they have a license and a get out of jail free card. These guys are accountable for the deeds they've done. And somehow, some way, this all has to be dealt with. We have to, because it's poisoned this entire world, and especially the U.S. So, and this is why I think people are the way they are. Quite honestly, John, I think that. Yeah. I don't know. We were raised right. I think we always had a spiritual, psychic nature. Whatever it is, I'm very grateful for. But I can tell you, the average person doesn't have those components. So,
oh God, no.
And kids that are being brought up, I mean, your daughters are beautiful, but I can only imagine, the crap that's out there, and these kids are being misled and they're not being brought up correctly. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, when my kids come home, I sit down and talk with them, what happened today? Did you have a good day, bad day? Who's giving you grief? Try to explain to them that. Yeah. And, my oldest daughter, who's 10, she's saying, oh, well, I'm trying to, read this book, and I had this reading partner, and she's just rude. She's telling me to hurry up and just get on with it and don't worry about it. And I'm like, you know what? Just if she's like that, just look at her and say, you might not want to learn, but I do.
Yeah. Or get a new partner. Why do they have to read with a group? Why can't they just read by themselves? What's up with that?
I don't know.
This is what I mean by the weirdest. I don't know about you, John, but do you remember when I was a kid, we had a library, and I was always reading adult books at 4 or 5 years old. So it's kind of like I didn't need anybody there holding my hand to read, even when I was like, that's ridiculous. So I don't know what they're teaching these poor kids. I would homeschool my kids so fast, I can't tell you.
Well, we used to homeschool our kids back in Minnesota, but here in Virginia, it's a lot harder to homeschool because they want control of the kids.
Right.
They want to tell the kids what to think, how to think, or in this case, what not to think. Don't question authority.
Mm-hmm. It's re-education. It's a re-education camp at an early age. And then when they grow up, they go to a college and it's the same old circus. Then they get a piece of paper that says they're worth something. They get a job that's miserable. That's all part of the propaganda, the false matrix. And they become swept away into the mainstream illusion.
And heaven forbids if you tell them no.
Right.
Or you're not, you know what, or you can't do that. You know, the school system has turned these kids into entitlement junkies.
Oh, I don't like that. Yeah, you have to negotiate with your kids. Well, in the old days, you get the belts on your ass. Nowadays, I mean, you know, they'd say that's abuse now, but in the old days, it was a switch or where they come from the trees. But
go out.
It was a belt.
I remember as a kid when my dad looked at me and said, "You're cruising for a bruising." That was my only warning. Yeah.
Well, and even then, that would be considered abuse nowadays. I mean, you know, we grew up in a different era, whole different generation.
Oh, I have no problem spanking my kids.
Well, you know, there's a time to basically, because if they act up when they get older, if you don't discipline them when they're young, they're going to be monsters, I think. Honestly, I really believe that. But I think they need some kind of structure and they need somebody to back them up because then they're going to think they can run everybody over. And if you say anything to them, they're going to have this sociopathic kind of personality. And I think that's what we're seeing nowadays is because people just they never discipline their kid. There was no structure. So all you see are a bunch of monsters on the loose. Unfortunately, it's really sad. And one of these days they're going to piss the wrong person off and they're going to counter them, you know, and it's going to be sad for them. But
exactly. I mean, we've been brainwashed to the point of, you know, we can't be parents to the kids. That's the state's responsibility or the school. And all the parents now want to be the kid's best friend. You're not put on this earth to be their best friend. You're put on this earth to be their teacher. Mm-hmm. You're their spirit guide.
Yeah, that's very true.
You're supposed to guide them on what's right, what's wrong. And unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of parents out there who are failing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, miserably, too. Well, it's like, you know, with my animals, I consider myself a guardian. You know, I don't own my animals. I'm a guardian. I watch them as best I can. I think that's what it is. You know, keep them out of harm's way. Try to give them the survival skills, keep them educated, give them spiritual advice, whatever it is they are seeking. But you have to set some boundaries and a moral compass. And I think that's you know, obviously a role model of a parent. And I don't see that. No, not at all. Now they just want to be like, negotiating with their kids. Here, you're 5 years old, but here's an iPhone for you. I'm like, you know, the crap that goes on here, and the people don't think there's something wrong with this. That's what's weird, John. They think it's the norm. Just because we have technology, does that mean your 5-year-old kid has to have an iPhone? I don't think so.
Well, you know, what's really sad is, you know, my 1-year-old, excuse me, not my 1-year-old, my 7-year-old who's in first grade.
Careful, that was Freudian, John.
Yes, yikes.
I hear your wife's pregnant in a year, or never mind.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, I'm gonna be going, okay, where have you been lately? Exactly. They're teaching her how to do coding on computers.
Really? Well,
my girl, my Scarlett, who's, you know, in third grade. I'm sorry, third grade. They just gave her a tablet.
Wow, that's funny.
It's like, really? No.
Well, that's easy for the teacher. That's the bottom line, too. A lot of that is just, you know, the television used to be the babysitter. Remember in the old days, they'd have a television for a kid, and that would be the babysitter. Well, the same thing is happening now, except it's a computer as the babysitter. It's a new babysitter.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, my girls know how to get onto YouTube. They get, you know, I've made a channel just for them, but it's under private, so only myself and, you know, the grandparents can watch it. But they know how to upload straight from the phone. And this is a first and third grader.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, God, you know, we're taking all these kids, teaching them how to use a computer, but we're not teaching them how to be a person, how to think, how to live, how to go outside and just feel the sun, feel the grass, how to use how to listen to your intuition. Not go on Google or Facebook and look for, you know, a moral compass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, Google is really not your friend.
No.
Google is Google. That's all there is to it. But yeah, that's the whole idea. And then everything in the whole network of Google is really just a dim, once again, it's dim information. It's a dim copy of not valid data for the most part. A lot of it's crap, even right down to, dictionaries. And I mean, there are words that this stupid ass, excuse my French, and I probably mentioned before, this particular computer system and some of the things that are out there, I can type, like if I'm writing one of my books, it wouldn't understand half the language I'm putting out there on Ascension or Mystery School Teachings because it's just not, it can't comprehend the data. It's not educated. So once again, these guys, whatever they're programming is not really good, in my opinion. It's just like the series and everything else. Those things are generic. They're not artificial intelligence. They are programmed software programs. That's all they are. And they're very, very stupid, if you ask me. I'm not impressed with any of the technology, quite honestly.
Well, there was, talking about Cirrus, there was a YouTube, and here I go with YouTube again. They did an experiment. They asked Siri, who is Muhammad? And it went into this long, explanation of who the prophet Muhammad is. Okay. The next question was, who is Jesus Christ? And the reply was, he is a fictional character.
Wow. Oh man.
And I'm sitting there going, you know what? You have all these young minds who are searching for answers and being told, a one-sided view.
Right.
No wonder there's so much turmoil and hate.
That's right. It's censored. Once again, there's censorship through the communication of the man-made artificial intelligence. I don't really call it AI. It's a software program. It's just electronic communication. But still, yeah, it's all censored. So they will show you what they want you to hear, what they want you to see, what they want you to experience, but it will not be valid. It will be an invalid program. It'll have nothing to do with anything on a multidimensional or truth level. And that's the problem we're running into, John. That's why we have truth media. I don't even call us alternative media anymore. We are the truth media. Yeah. Because the truth media is based on what we're doing, real-time conversations, not the BS that's going on. Oh, you can't say this, you can't do that. Oh, you can't step on this person's toes. And if this person's guilty, oh, you can't say anything about it. BS, okay? Right? No, we were changing the dynamic here, and that's what's going on. So, yeah, and then just think about it. And think about all the tricksters in the spirit world. If they act like this now, like let's pick on CNN. They act like this now with their personnel, and they die. What do you think they're going to be like when they leave? The same miserable entity-controlled units, right?
There's a special place in hell for those folks at CNN.
I think there's a special place in the Phantom Zone for their sorry butts. Seriously, I mean, we're talking about a nice orchestrated destination that they don't want to be part of. So yeah,
I mean, if you look back to, say, the past 20, 30 years, okay, let's start at the 70s and 80s. I think we were almost at the point of expanding our minds. Then somehow in the 90s, we have become lazy, brainwashed. And I think this is when technology really started to kick in. Mm-hmm. From the mid-90s all the way to now, there's nothing. It's like we're all just walking, bags of water and meat without a clue.
Well, so, I mean, aren't we the dead or the living? You have to ask yourself what's really alive and what's really dead at this point. People walk around, but they seem like they're zombies to me. So
exactly.
They're just programmed. There's a program running. There's electricity running in their bodies, but there's no comprehension. There's no consciousness. There's no education, and there's no compassion, John. There's no heart center. There's no emotion. So,
yeah, I mean, if you got people that's willing to mistreat animals and mistreat kids like those clowns out in California, that should tell you where our spiritual moral compass is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people are the benchmark. Well, like I said, it's cause and effect.
I hope to God, and I pray that the spirits on the other side will intervene and put us back on track, but I just don't see it happening.
I mean, we are basically the best role models we can be. We bring in our divinity. We can get divine assistance on some level. But I will say it's really up to each and every person to step it up and deprogram it. But the thing is, they don't even know they're under mind control. They don't even know they're programmed in the false collective of lies. They just don't even get it because nobody around them is going to tell them the truth. It's all about peer pressure. So they're all these little hordes and collectives of disinformation, and they just hang out together like little schools and little fish. They just kind of flow in the same thing. They don't see the whale coming. They don't care. So I don't know. We can't save the world. We can't be Atlas, and we can't carry the world on our shoulders, but we can put the message out and be the people we are and be the right beings we are. And when we leave, we leave. We wash our hands. There's no guilt. There's no blood on our hands, and we just keep ascending. That's the way I see it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I fear for my kids in the world that they're going to come up in.
Oh, yeah. Train them in martial arts hardcore, get them a conceal and carry when they get old enough. It's like, that's my advice to you.
Oh,
Seriously.
no, we're going to go get some land, and we're going to go back to what we used to do back in Minnesota, be self-sufficient.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that too, but still, they still need to, I'm a firm believer in self-defense and making sure you can take care of yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. They both know how to use a pistol and a rifle.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah, because these are times where everybody is being preyed upon. I see a lot of predators out there. I've never seen so many predators in my entire life as I do now.
God, yeah.
They're hunting people on the internet. There's bullies here. There's bullies there. There are people there. There's stalkers in real life. There's disgusting. And the only thing they understand is to somebody to back them up. And you can't rely on the law enforcement to help you. I mean, sometimes they're there. Sometimes they may not be there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if this is the Matrix, I think we should say, hey, can you please reboot the system again?
Oh, yeah. It needs a reset. Yep. I always say that,
Don't do any more upgrades. Just kind of revert back to 2.0 or something.
This is ridiculous. Well, I always say, and it's like nuke from space is the only way to be sure it was from the movie Aliens, right? But seriously,
nuke from orbit.
Nuke from orbit. Yeah, I always say nuke from space. Yeah, that's it. Nuke from orbit, because man, oh man, is it a disease right now? But I would always say get the good people off the planet first, and all the animals, and then you can nuke the hell out of this place. Knock yourselves out. Nuke it. Dust it. I don't care. But it's out of control. Go ahead.
I just look at the stars and say, E.T., please take me to the new Earth 3.0.
Yeah, I just want one of those black triangles at Area 51 or wherever the hell it's hiding right now. If I get one of those ships, I'll come by. I'll pick all my friends up and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, let's go. I'm waiting.
It'll be like the Millennium Falcon, though. Just hold together and we'll get going. No, seriously, I'm so done. I'm so done. I've tried so hard, and I know you have too. But there's only so much you can do here for everybody. And take care of yourself at the same time. And then you see the world falling apart. And then you see the people in the illusion of power and control. And a lot of people who are just way too much money and time on their hands to spend. And they just seem like they're poisoning the world. They don't care. They just don't care. So
everyone's just, exactly. No one cares. And, it makes me wonder what a spirit or a ghost thinks when they see all this and go, really, folks?
Right. Well, what's interesting, I think that's why there is some trickster stuff going on here and there, maybe just to mess with the jerks. But I wouldn't even waste my time with them, but I can understand sometimes the spirit world probably gets pissed off. Don't piss off the spirit world. And mankind has.
Exactly. So you just got to roll with it and just pray for the best and prepare for the worst.
There you go. And you know what? We have about 4 minutes plus or minus here. This is a fast hour, John. But it's so wonderful to have you. You know what? I love having you on. I hope to have you as a regular at some point, because you're wonderful and you need to come on and talk about all your investigations and everything else. And plus your philosophical benchmark is very impressive as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want real quick, I'm going to start doing some paranormal investigations in the next month.
Nice.
In fact, there's a place here called the Old Brick Church, which is next to Bacon's Castle. Bacon. We all love bacon. And this, I know every time I go past Bacon's Castle, I'm going, does it have maple in it? Is it fried and fat? But this place is a old church, was built in 1754. And it was in use by the Church of England until 1847, when it was destroyed by fire. And the story goes that apparently it was set on fire by recently free slaves.
Wow. And you know what? We're out of time here, John. So if people want to find out more, you're going to have to be back on the show for sure. And also check in on your Facebook page. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on. And everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mecky. And I believe David is running solo to shine you on and sail you on to the night from down under, as they always do with their fantastic show. I'm not sure what David's going to be talking about, news articles. So stay tuned to keep him company. Even call in if you want to. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Stay warm if you're out there with the snow out here. All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks. Night.
Night.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed, people working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that, just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your